Thank you, Lauria, for joining me today on the Turtle Optimist podcast. Today's topic is charity quilting, and I'm really excited to learn about this. Before we dive in, can you start off by sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I have been born and raised in Oregon and I love it here. And I have a family, a husband, two kids, three grandkids, lots of bonus grandkids. And I work part-time and I just enjoy life wherever it takes me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome. So I'm going to start with the first question. How did you get involved in charity quilting and what inspired you to start?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try and shorten it as much as I can. Growing up, I did a lot of sewing from the age of 9. I think my mom taught me how to do basic sewing, some hemming, Barbie clothes, garment clothing, that type of thing. I always considered quilting very much an old person's thing to
Hmm.
do. And I had no desire to sit around this frame and do handwork and gossip. That just did not appeal to me at all. And back in 2003, a friend of mine's like, "Hey, let's take a quilting class." And I'm like, let's not. And she goes, "No, you'll love it. It's all by machine." I'm like, "All by machine?" She says, "Yes." And I'm like, mm, "I'll trust you on this." So we took this class. I fell in love with it, started to go to work at a quilt shop in, my local area. And one time they held a Make a Difference Day. And the focus was making some pillowcases for children in foster care. And I was just so impacted by the phrase "Make a Difference Day," and then the fact that we were doing something for complete strangers. And so I talked to my boss and I said, "Hey, why don't we have a Make a Difference Day every month? And maybe people can come and work on whatever they want to work on for whatever organization they want to work on and just give people the space to give back." And it became a really big thing.
Mm.
And then later on, when the store closed down, I wanted to continue this charity sewing, if you will. And I got together with another group that was making baby quilts, and I just continued on from there. And it's been, over 20 years.
Wow. Wow. Are you part of a specific group or it's just
Yeah.
like people who get together or like how often do you get together, etc.?
Yes, I work with a small group of about 13 to 15 quilters. We meet once a month at a local quilt shop that lets us sew for free, which is really nice.
Wow.
And we just sit around and we mainly work on things at home and then bring it once a month. We have a little show and tell, and then we just kind of catch up. So it's a little bit of a friendship circle. We do some sewing there and we just work on these projects throughout the year. And we average around 250, 275 quilts a year just from our small little group that we donate to the local area organizations.
Wow. That's a lot. That's,
Yeah,
that's a lot of quilting, a lot of
it's
sewing.
a lot of fun. I think last year I made 30 small baby quilts. There's a couple people in the group that have made over 50. I think one year, my best year, it was a big goal to do one quilt a week, and I made like 52 quilts for that year. But that's not common.
Right. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. Oh my gosh. So tell us about some of the organizations or causes that you've quilted for.
We do a lot of work with our local hospitals, mainly a Providence St. Vincent in their NICU. We work with Randall Children's Hospital, Dornbecker's Children's Hospital. We also have done things for Pregnancy Resource Center. We've done, oh my goodness, Project Linus, pillowcases for foster care kids. We've done a variety of things. So if somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, we have this need, can you help
Mhm.
us?" And if we have available quilts, absolutely we'll help them. We're not pigeonholed into one specific organization. We help whoever needs help.
Mhm. Wow, that's awesome. Wow. What types of quilts do you typically make for charities, and do you have a, you know, favorite pattern or style?
Well, our group, since we're pretty small, and we tend to focus on small children, mainly babies. Our
Mhm.
quilts are very small, maybe 36 to 40 inches. And they're just, they can be very elaborate or they can be very simple depending on the quilter's style and preference. I used to try and do very intricate things and try to new patterns all the time. And then I came across a pattern that I just fell in love with. It's not very fancy. It's actually very, very simple. But the thing that really helped me gravitate toward it was that it left very few scraps. And I'm all about using all of the scraps that I can, and then I'll make scrap quilts. And so I do have one favorite one and I use it all the time. And some people ask me, well, doesn't that get boring? And I said, no, because I use all these different fabrics and the fabrics can actually change the look, even though it's a very simple pattern.
That makes sense. What are some of the challenges that you've faced while doing the charity quilting, and how have you overcome them?
Well, some of the challenges that we've had over the years are obviously the lack of quilt shops. They've closed due to the economic issues that we all face. And so we've had to kind of like bounce from quilt shop to quilt shop. Thankfully, we've been with this one for over 10 years and they've been
Mhm.
super supportive and we are so grateful to them. And the other, economy. Prices have skyrocketed in the 20 plus years that I've been quilting. When I first started in 2003, I could buy a yard of fabric for $6 to $8 a yard, which is still very expensive when at the time you could buy fabric for $3, $4 a yard.
Mhm.
And now for good quilting cotton that's good quality and beautiful or fun, it can range $14, $15 a yard
Oh,
without
wow.
a sale. Yeah. So it's very expensive. So getting quilters to give up their pocket change, if you will, to buy some fabric to give away can be kind of tough. So
Mhm.
we, reach out to different people and see if they'd like to donate. Thankfully, the quilt shop that we work with, they collect donations and we are welcome to dig through them and pick whatever we want as long as it's for charity. They
Mhm.
don't care. They really encourage us to take what we can and use it.
Wow, that's really nice. Can you share a particular, a memorable story or an experience from the time that you've been doing charity quilting?
I think probably the most tender memory that I have was several years ago. I was invited to participate in a NICU reunion at a hospital.
Mm.
And it wasn't just me, there was several other quilters. And meeting some of the families that some of our quilts went to was touching in and of itself. But when people told us, gosh, this was the hardest moment of our lives that we were going through while our child was in the NICU, and we received this beautiful gift from a stranger. And it was kind of like giving them, a fabric hug, or just them knowing that other people were thinking about them, thinking positive thoughts for them, wishing the best for them, really made a difference in their lives and made it, a micro millimeter better
Mhm.
of when what they were going through. So it was just hearing those stories and their gratefulness. And, we're just like, oh, we love making quilts. It's our hobby. We just give them away willy nilly. We don't care. And then to know that it impacts somebody so much, it's just really touching.
That's beautiful. How do you source the materials for the charity quilts, and are there any specific like fabrics or batting that you prefer to use?
Mhm. There's obviously going to the quilt shops, both, local small quilt shops as well as the chain store fabric stores. Those are the easiest, obviously.
Mhm.
Donations, that's a big one. And, because we're working with small babies, a lot of them very sick and ill, we really try and give good quality fabrics for these quilts so that they can be washed over and over and over again without them falling apart or getting threadbare. So we like good quality cottons, cotton batting, you know cotton, sometimes polyester thread, but mostly through and through cotton, mainly because since it's a natural fiber, it breathes so that it
Mhm.
doesn't overheat the children. Obviously, when we have donations, we ask that they be very clean, smoke free, animal free, so that we're not, bringing something that shouldn't be into the child's life.
Hmm. Right, right. Okay. Do you have any tips or advice for listeners who are interested in getting started with charity quilting, like wherever they live?
Oh, absolutely. The best thing to do is hit up your local quilt shops. Your locally small owned quilt shops are the number one resource that anybody is going to have, because the local quilt shops are going to be networking with the community, reaching out to these organizations, because every quilt shop that I've ever been to has a focus of some sort of charity or some sort of way to give back to the community. So that's going to be the number one way to get in touch with some sort of activity. I would say probably the local quilt guilds as well. I mean, here in my area, we have probably 4 or 5 quilt guilds that you can reach out to very, very easily. It's, you can always, if you're willing, you can always find a way to network and to get involved.
Hmm. Hmm. Sounds like it. And it's nice to support the local quilt shops, I'm sure, than the big box stores.
Absolutely, because the chain stores, they don't necessarily reach out to the community. They might be in touch with like a national organization that might do something, but they're not reaching out to your local needs.
Hmm. Right, right. Okay. How has charity quilting impacted your life, and what do you find most rewarding about it?
Let's see, how has impact my life by turning a whole room in my house into a quilt studio. I jokingly call it an obsession because
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't buy just a little bit of fabric. If I see something I really like, I buy a lot because I'm going to use it. And so I have lots and lots of fabric. So it's
Hmm.
definitely impacted me that way. No, it's impacted me in the way of really connecting with my community, looking for ways to donate, listening to people and their needs, finding out what, if anything, is needed in the area, and seeing if we can help with that. Several years ago, we had a local veteran shelter that wanted Christmas stockings so that they could give everybody in the shelter a little something at Christmas. And so I'm like, hey, group, you want to make Christmas stockings instead of quilts this month? And they were like, yeah. So, it just really helps me to give back to my community. I am so grateful. I love the area that I live in, and it's my way of kind of saying thank you to my area for letting me be a part of it.
Hmm. Hmm. That's really nice. What are some ways that people can support charity quilting efforts, even if they don't sew, like me?
I think that's pretty easy. There's always a need for people to deliver the quilts to the different organizations, or help us network with somebody. Like maybe somebody knows an organization that could use some sort of quilts or sewing projects, and then reach out to the local quilt guilds or whatever and put them, help them network. That's always a huge help. Obviously, maybe coming to a meeting every couple of months or whatever, and hey, I can help iron or cut fabric or check the quilts to make sure that there's no dog hair or anything on, help that way. And of course, donations. We love donations.
Hmm.
It can be in
Hmm.
fabric, batting, thread. It could be brand new scissors, brand new rotary blades. Supplies are, always in need. So yeah, we always like donations.
All right. Thanks for the tips. What is your vision for the future of charity quilting, and what do you hope to see it accomplish?
Well, for my small little group, I would love to see it grow. Just grow that way, the more quilters, the more quilts, the more quilts, the more, giving we can do. And as a movement in general, it would be nice to just get more people involved. And it doesn't, mean that they need to make 50 quilts a year. If they made 1 or 2 quilts a year, or some Christmas stockings, or something, if it would just grow, and if 1 or 2 people got more friends, and it just putting back out into the world what we receive. I mean, and there's so much garbage happening right now, and you turn on the news and it's all horrible stuff, and at the very end, there's a little lighthearted story. It's like, no, no, I want to change that. I would like to see charity sewing, charity quilting, just giving back in general be the norm and not the 5 minute snippet at the end of a news story. That's what I
Right.
would like to see.
I agree. That's a great hope
Yes.
for what we would like to see in the world. Yes, totally. Well, thank you so much, Lori, for talking to me today about charity quilting. I've learned a lot because I know that when I talked to you originally, I was like, charity quilting. Like it totally makes sense, but I didn't have the lingo for it. So I really appreciate your time today, and it's been a great conversation. And let's stay connected.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. This has been very exciting, and I have been looking forward to it since you brought it up to me.